Is everybody ready? Are we all ready for a good show? Yeah? You ready? You ready? I'm ready, yeah. Alright, let's have the best show ever, guys. Come on. Let's really show these people how good we are at this. Hello everybody and welcome to Monday's edition of the Chris Pritchard... Is this chair in shot? It's not. It's not in shot, it's fine. Hello everybody and welcome to today's episode. It's Monday, it's the Chris Pritchard Cycling News Show, and I'm back from like 5 days of streaming all last week. We'll get into the news shortly. There's loads of racing been going off, but a little bit of housekeeping here, a little bit of self-love, a little bit of self-promotion. First up, if you've not checked out last week's podcast with me and Cam, make sure you do that. We sat down and chatted to Dylan from the Sufferfest, Dylan Robbins from the Sufferfest, who is marketing manager there. He goes into explaining the whole story of Sufferfest, the Tour of Sufferlandria, our experiences of that, Dylan's experiences of that, which are very similar to Chris Pritchard's streams circa 2019 with the hot sauce. Anyway, go and check it out. It's a good listen, even if I do say so myself. All right, give it a listen. SoundCloud, iTunes, Spotify, or right here on YouTube. All right, first up, before we get into the proper esports news, I just want to again touch on the Tour of Sufferlandria. And do you know what? I have not trained. Listen, all right, I'm going to hold my hands up. I didn't complete the Tour of Sufferlandria, I know. But you know what? It doesn't matter. I mean, it does a little bit, but it doesn't really matter. Because what I found out, and we spoke about this in the podcast, what I found out was that there are still Facebook pages out there that provide a community with inspiration, with motivation, who actually get behind one another. And it's not just a toxic environment of dick measuring, all right? It's actual people saying, go on, give it your all, try your best. And those people in the Tour of Sufferlandria Facebook page won't be upset that I didn't finish it. They won't be annoyed because I gave it everything I could. And they'll be happy and they'll still leave positive comments. Do you know, it's so refreshing to see a Facebook page with so much positivity. I think other platforms could learn a thing or two about that. All right? One thing I've got to say though, a huge shout out to Sufferfest, right? Because the man behind Sufferfest, David McKillen, he popped up into the stream while I was doing the Violator. 64 sprints inside an hour, ranging from 5 seconds, 10 seconds to 15 seconds. It was hard. It was brutal. And after 4 sprints, I was like, I'm done. I'm finished. I don't care for this anymore. And then all of a sudden, the CEO, the man behind the Sufferfest, comes into the stream and he says, every time you hit more than 1,000 watts, Chris, I'm going to donate $10 to the foundation. So I dug deep. I bloody dug deep and I managed to hit 41 sprints consecutively over 1,000 watts. Oh, it was hard. It was brutal. But I did it. So in all, I've raised just under $500 for the Davis Phinney Foundation, which I'm pretty proud of. All right, even though I didn't complete it all, I'm proud of what I did. And I just want to give a massive shout out to anybody that took part in it. Cannot believe the amount of community spirit that there was out there. Even though you're in your own suffer cave, pain cave, whatever you want to call it, you're in there on your own, doing your own workouts at your own limits, yet it still feels like a community. It was brilliant. All right, and just a quick roundup of the rest of the news in the esports stroke indoor cycling world. First up, Zwift have announced a hot route around Watopia. It's going to take place right at the end of Zwift season, really, April the 3rd to the 5th. And Zwifters are going to have to complete 3 stages back to back. Stage 1 takes place on the Three Sisters, a 48-kilometre route that includes the Watopia KOM, the Epic KOM, and the Volcano climbs, delivering over 80. Stage 2 is going to be the Tour of Fire and Ice, starting out at the Volcano and then heading up Alpe de Zwift. And then the third and final stage of the Haute route takes in the infamous pretzel. Mum said, if you haven't got anything good to say, don't say anything. So, let me know. Do you think this is a good idea? Is this something good? Do you want something more out of this? Because I'm thinking, yeah, you're probably going to get a jersey out of it, potentially a new colour scheme on a bike. I'm sitting here saying that I love the Tour of Sufferlandria and everything that went with it, but I can't really get excited about a 3-day climbing event on Zwift. It just doesn't seem to have any pull. If I took part in it, potentially maybe I would, but let me ask you, as avid Zwifters, the whole route, when this gets announced, do you think, oh my God, this is really exciting, this is something I can really get my teeth into? Or because you can go and do those races at any point, or those routes should I say, do you think it's kind of like, I can go and do this at any point. I can jump on this now and over the next 3 days do these 3 courses. What extra am I getting out of it apart from potentially a jersey and a bit of community spirit riding with other people? But maybe that's it. I don't know. Anyway, Hut Route, Watopia is coming to Zwift. Moving across to real esports racing now, and CV Arcade is currently in their 2nd week of the Team World Cup, which is taking place on Saturdays at 6 PM here in the UK. And I've got to say, I've said this before, by far the most fun I have ever had racing. On Saturday night I was drafted in to ride for Team CyclingHub, and we only went and bloody won.
Chris Pritchard once again is accelerating. We can see him on the front here. 100 meters to go. It is a left-hand turn. And ladies and gentlemen, Chris Pritchard taking the win this time for sure.
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Not only did I have to use my very limited power in my legs, I also had to use my very limited resources of skills and tactics and teamwork to actually win a race. It wasn't just about smashing those pedals. And the more I ride it, I've got to say, the more I enjoy it. It was great. I'm going to be streaming next week's on Saturday, 6 PM UK. So if you want to get involved in it, if you want to check it out, if you want to see what CV Arcade's all about, then I highly recommend that you go and check out that stream. Obviously, CVR are also streaming the race events live as well. And then finally, in the indoor stroke esports section of the news show, Peloton are back in the news. Rival company to Peloton, Flywheel, are being sued, as Peloton claimed it had copied the idea for a smart bike and live classes from its rival. And because of this lawsuit against Flywheel, it means that anybody who's paid out £2,000 for one of these Flywheel smart bikes will not be able to use it for its intended use by the end of March. Yes, you can still jump on it and ride it or use it as a clothes horse or whatever you're currently using it as, but the end of March, they'll stop doing their live classes. But never fear, if you do own a Flywheel bike, I don't know anybody that owns them. To be honest, until I read this story, I'd never heard of Flywheel. But if you are an owner of a Flywheel bike out there, don't worry. It's fine. Everything will be sorted as long as you decide to part exchange your Flywheel bike for a refurbished or a brand new Peloton bike. Then you can just keep receiving your live stream spin classes from Peloton instead of Flywheel. Right, leave your comments below on this one. Like, 1, have you ever heard of Flywheel? And 2, Peloton's domination is just going through the roof, even though they lost like 1.5 billion in value after their very dodgy adverts and their very poor marketing campaigns. But let me know what you think. Do you care? I certainly don't. Next up, and real world racing now. Loads of races seem to be going off. The UAE Tour started. We'll get onto that shortly. First up, let's talk about the Andalusia Ruta del Sol, I believe it's called, where Jakob Fuglasang of Astana took the overall general classification. Going into the last stage on Sunday, which was an individual time trial, Jakob Fuglasang had the overall general classification, 14 seconds ahead of Mikael Lander, Jack Haig in 3rd position, but it was all to change after the individual time trial, in which Dylan Teuns took the victory. He took it, well, they gave him and Jakob Fuglasang the same time. However, Dylan Teuns beat Fuglasang by around a second. Alex Edmondson was in 3rd position, 2 seconds behind those guys. And then that meant ultimately the overall general classification changed slightly. So Jakob Fuglasang still took the overall victory. Jack Haig moved up into 2nd place, demoting Mikael Lander down into 3rd. Obviously, Mikael Lander isn't known for being the best time trialist in the world, and it shows there where he drops himself down into 3rd position. Dylan Teuns actually made it into the top 5 after that cracking result in that individual time trial. Another race which finished over the weekend was Another race that finished over the weekend was Volta Algarve, and in it some big names making some big moves, none more so than Remco Evenepoel. And the biggest moment in this stage race wasn't even the end. It was stage 2 where Remco Evenepoel took the victory in emphatic style. He made everybody else look stupid. What was supposed to be really a day for climbers proved that Remco can do it all. And then from stage 2, he didn't look back. The final stage, similar to the Ruta Del Sol, was a individual time trial where Remco Evenepoel, who is, don't forget, the European time trial champion, went and bloody won the individual time trial, extending his overall lead in that general classification. Again, showing you that this kid can bloody do it all. Not only did Remco Evenepoel win this individual time trial, which in itself, great result, but then look at who's in second position. Rowan Dennis, world individual time trial champion. He beat him by 10 seconds. I mean, I've kind of already lost words for this kid. Such is his talent at such a young age. But where do you think, right, his talent really lays? Do you think he's going to focus on one specific element of his cycling and really go to town on it? Do you think he's going to be a one-day classic specialist? Do you think he's going to be a time trial specialist? Do you think he's going to slim down slightly? I don't even know if he needs to. Is he going to be able to keep up with the likes of Egan Bernal if he decides to go for general classification in the Tour de France, for instance? Do you think Remco is going to be capable of doing that? Or do you think he's just too strong everywhere else that it would be daft to try and concentrate solely on becoming a better climber? I mean, he's an amazing climber, don't get me wrong. I don't know. Let me pass it off to you. What? No, not what. Where? Where do you think Remco will be in 3 years' time? Will he be chasing Grand Tour victories? Will he be solely hitting those one-day classics? Will he just do a bit of everything like Mathieu van der Poel? Or do you think his star has shined so bright already that he'll get into drugs, partying, women, or men, and he'll just I don't know, disappear off the face of the cycling earth? Leave your comments down below. And then finally, as 2 races finish, one race begins over in the Middle East. The UAE Tour started on Sunday, and we saw Chris Froome, although he raced a couple of crits and did a few bits here and there, this is his official return to racing. Now, before we talk about Froome, let's talk about the stage finish. The stage was won by Pascal Ackermann. Caleb Ewan was in second position, and Rudy Barbier was in third. Groenewegen, fourth. Luca Mesquet, fifth. Sixth was Alberto Dionisi for Team Sunweb. And then one man you'd expect to be a little bit higher, Sam Bennett, he was down in 13th position. As I say, we'll talk about Froome and his return to racing in a minute. But first, I just wanted to touch on the amount of unbelievably talented sprinters that we saw here at the UAE Tour. And not only that, but how exciting it's going to be to have not even a handful, 2 handfuls of talented sprinters who are all capable of winning, who are all very equally matched in terms of speed and talent and skill. This could be one of the most exciting years for sprinting in a long time. It's not like, when Mark Cavendish was on fire, when Marcel Kittel was on fire, when Greipel was on fire. When those boys were on form, there was no one else that was capable of winning. When Cav was in a sprint, you know that he was going to win that sprint. It was very rare that he wouldn't. Same with Marcel Kittel. But when you look at the sprinters that we've got here, the Ackermann, Caleb Ewan, Sam Bennett, Dainese, Gaviria, he was nowhere to be seen. He got a little bit mardy because he got shut out. I mean, Demar, I still don't like him. Groenewegen, Elia Viviani, put all them together in the mix and potentially any one of them. But even again, Cav, he's got far more experience than a lot of these guys, and if he can just maintain the same speed as these guys, get out of trouble, there's no reason why he couldn't. But when you look at potentially 10 riders taken to a sprint, you can't have those lead out trains like we saw back in the day with Cavendish when it was just one team taking it to the front. You've got 4 or 5 teams all capable of leading out these rides and leading. Anyway, I'm digressing a little bit. What I'm trying to say is it's just a really exciting time for sprinters and people who enjoy sprint stages, because anyone can bloody win it. But one man who certainly won't be winning any sprint stages, or any stages for that matter, in the next coming months, I don't think. I could be wrong. But Chris Froome has made his return to cycling. His first race is the UAE Tour, and he basically just wants to get it under his belt. He's not going there with any expectations. He's not going to try and play a massive role within the team. He's literally there to get miles in his legs, to get race experience, to get rid of that ring rust that I bet he's had. After 8 months of not racing, then coming back, he's going to want to hit the ground, run it, not hit. He's going to want to stay on his bike, but try and get rid of that ring rust. Try and get a feel for that Peloton again, and just be part of it, and hopefully, fingers crossed, get himself as close as he can be to his full fitness come the Tour de France. He spoke to a couple of journalists prior to the UAE Tour, and this is what he had to say.
Good. I'm obviously really looking forward to racing again after 8 months off with all the injuries I had. So it feels, like I said, it feels like the first day of school again. Feels amazing to be back. It feels, I've been given a second chance now to come back to the Peloton, and I'm really grateful for that.
How are your goals for this race?
Well, first of all, it's been eight months without racing, so I just looking forward to being back in the Peloton again and just getting through the week the best I can. I'm definitely not going to be winning this week, but I've got to start somewhere, and this seemed like a great event for me to start at.
Me personally, I'm glad Chris Froome is back. I think it's really good for the sport of cycling. I think wherever he goes, whichever races he attends, he always raises the profile of those events. I think it's nice to see him not have to retire because of that injury. You always want to see a rider or any sports person leave on the top, leave when they're at their best, and there's no tarnish on their career. Whether he is going to come back and be the best, I don't know, but at least he's going to come back, and at least he's going to try, and he potentially might become a very solid domestique for Egan Bernal in the 2020 Tour de France, if he makes it there at all. Potentially, he could be moving his season on a little bit further, and he could compete in La Vuelta, where, he could potentially win it. I don't think you have to be Tour de France level fit to win La Vuelta. Yes, La Vuelta's hard, but just the time of the year it is, because there's less prestige behind it than the Tour de France. If you time your fitness right, you could go in there and be at 99% and be capable of winning it, rather than having to be at 100. But again, let me pass it off to you, because I love your comments about Chris Froome. He always kind of polarizes people, 70% positive and behind him, 30 not so much. But yeah, are you glad to see him back? Or do you think he should have used the crash as a bit of a sign to say, Froome, you're getting on a little bit, this is probably a good time to retire so you don't get your ass kicked by these youngsters? Or do you think he's going to come back and be an amazing domestique? Do you think he's going to come back to full fitness and wipe the floor with these young kids? Do you think he's going to kick Remco Evenepoel up the butt and say, hey son, messing with the big dogs now, get it back at Q, I've still got a few years left in me? Who knows? I guess you don't either, but let me know what you think anyway. Alright, and that's it for another news show. Make sure, if you've not done already, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Tomorrow, again, it's the Brewdog Chain Gang ride over on Zwift. If you want to be part of it, links down in the description to the event. We're doing the Keith Hill after party, which is the London course. It's 60 minutes of riding, and in that time, I hopefully expect us all to be at the top of Keith Hill. Not on top of Keith Hill. Cresting Keith. Join the event. Oosh.